Hi everybody, we're continuing on with our tale of the prodigal son. This is Luke chapter 15 verse 17 now. We're still on page 289 of Richard Lafleur's Wheelock's Latin Reader. In se autem reversus dixit, quanti mercenari patris mei abundunt panibus, ego autem hic fame pereo, surgam et ibo ad patrem meum et dicamili pater peccavi in caelum et coram te, et iam num sum dignus vocari filius tuus. And we'll continue on. We've got enough Latin out of the way. Now let's start translating it. So in, preposition takes an accusative or ablative. We don't know with se. Autem, however, moreover. We don't know what that means. Reversus. So this looks like one of these participles. This is, having returned, literally turned around, turned back. So having turned back, that's how that's going to be, and that's a nominative, masculine, singular, which clearly we're still talking about the prodigal son, and he's going to be the subject of our verb dixit. So this is a participial beginning. So having turned back on himself, however, and Lafleur helps us out by saying, really, to his own senses. We're saying he was out of his mind before, but now he's turned back to himself. And the prodigal son said, quanti. Literally, in classical Latin, this would be how much? What great amount? To do how many in terms of people, somebody like Cicero, and Lafleur makes this point, would use quote. But here we're in a different ball game. We're in Vulgate Latin. So we've got quanti mercenari. So what is the number of mercenari? So what do we get this? Well, we get this idea of merchants, right, and trading. So a mercenari is somebody who, is a kind of paid laborer. So how many of these laborers of my father, abundant, looks like an English word, but here we actually have from abundo, meaning have lots of, and then like abounding in, and it takes an ablative object, what you're abounding in. So how many of the kind of day laborers, the workers of my father, are, have tons of bread? I, nevertheless, here, so this is a long hic, this isn't hic haec hoc, this isn't this guy, it's not referring back to ego, no, not at all. It's saying here in this place, that is this foreign region where he's feeding pigs. So that's a adverb. So again, lots of adverbs here. I, nevertheless, here, pereo, am dying. And dying how? Fame. So we'd seen fames earlier, this nice third declension noun. It could mean famine when you're talking about a region, but when you're talking about a single person, it's hunger. So this is an ablative of means, which is ironic because this is a complete lack of means that's facing the prodigal son, but we were saying that I'm dying here, nevertheless, through hunger. I'm starving to death. Surgam. We don't know if this is either, because it's first person singular, whether it's present subjunctive or future indicative. Because for these third and fourth conjugation verbs, the future indicative will have this E, S, E, T, and all other numbers and persons, second person singular, third person singular, but in the first it has this am, which is otherwise ubiquitous in the present subjunctive. Remember, he fears a giant liar. So we have those I stems in the fourth conjugation, the third I stem, IO kind of conjugation, but this is what we're looking at. So we don't know if this is I should get up or I will get up. We're only cued in ultimately by this unambiguous ebo, this I will go. So I'm going to get up, and I am going to go to my father, and I will say to him. So we can tell that all of these are going to be the future indicative only by dint of this ebo, and the fact that Vulgate is, has loved to use this future indicative where we weren't seeing this so much in Pliny and Livy. And I will say to him, Pater, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your presence, or maybe we could say sinned against you. And now, no, not am I. So we might say for this, no longer am I. So we're saying I am not now, but I once was. So no longer am I dignus. This is worthy. This often can take an ablative or genitive, but here we're going to say worthy to be called. It's going to take a complementary infinitive. So I say to be called. Well, what is vocare? It's coming ultimately from voco, the verb, voco, vocare, to call. So if we want to make it passive, we'd either be adding an R to there, vocor, I am called, or changing this final E in the infinitive to a final long I. Ironically pronounces it E in Latin. So vocare, worthy to be called, worthy of being called your son. So note here that these are nominatives. They're not accusative. So even though they are we might kind of think of them in English as the object of this calling, really calling is saying that we have equivalence. I am your son and I am worthy, or am not worthy as the case may be. All of this goes, to work with the first person speaker, the prodigal son. It's not the same thing to be called as it is to say be hit or hit. Where these things take a physical direct object, there's a different kind of relationship. When we've got this passive verb of being, it's really a stative verb. To say that I am called is basically a way of saying I am. I am not worthy to be called your son. This nominative can still be nominative here on this side of the verb and on the right side of the verb. The fact that we want to even think of it being accusative is because of our English predilections. So facme sicut unum de mercenariis tuis. So make me. So this is an imperative. And then me is going to be our direct object that's accusative. So this is accusative here. I should maybe make that clear. Filius is a nominative, not accusative. Me is indeed accusative. So make me just as one of your laborers. So he's, been humbled by this whole experience and says, I would be happy just to be considered among this because I've been a terrible son. At Sergei, so this is what, he's kind of talked to himself and said, well, this is what I'm going to tell Dad when I see him. And then we get this nice kind of parallelism of he says what I'm going to do, and then we see it happen. At Sergei's, and getting up, he came, he went, we might say. And this is probably going to be a long E because we've been dealing with perfects. Wenet could also, it looks identical to the present form wenet, which has a short E. But we've been seeing these perfect forms everywhere, so that's probably what's going on. So, and getting up, he went to his father. When, however, from a long off at that point he was, so that's, he's kind of coming across the fields. Oh, we did. Sorry, that should be a T there. It's not I saw, but he saw him. And again, we don't know who the subject is at this point. We keep on having this happen. We're getting a change of subject, and it's only later that we can make context to make sense of everything. So when, however, from a long time out he saw him. And who did the seeing? Well, this is going to be our subject, the pater ipsius. And this is going to be a genitive of ipsa, sa, ipsum. So that's modifying the pater. So it's literally the father saw him. So the direct object here equals the prodigal son. At misericordia motus est, and was moved by pity. Remember, we've seen this in the Ten Commandments. Nice ablative of means here. What's causing him to be emotionally moved? Well, it's pity. And accurrens, from the verb curro, currere, to run, and then plus add. And then this a assimilates, as we say, takes the form of the kind of following consonant. So we get accurro, and then accurrens is going to be our active present participle. So, and running, he falls. It's going to be our main verb, or fell, supra colum, on his neck. So that's a strange phrase. We don't know whose neck this is, but we can tell because if you know the context, you know what this means, to fall on a neck of somebody. This means to hug. You've thrown your arms around. You've embraced. So that's actually what's going on here. So and having been moved, and he was moved by pity, and running toward him, he embraced him, his son, and kissed him. So Lafleur helps us out here. Osculare is a nice deponent verb meaning to kiss. So osculatus s is simply the perfect form of it. It's deponent, so it looks passive, but is indeed active, and that's why we can take this direct object. It's a transitive verb. Transitive verbs take direct objects. Intransitive verbs can't. So what we have here is, and he kissed him. And he said to him, the son. So here, Filius is going to be our nominative. So again, we're getting a switch in order of our verbs, or who our subject is. This is our nominative subject directing the verb. And AE then has to be our indirect object of to whom he's speaking, and that's going to be the father here. So we'll say father. So the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your presence, or against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. So I don't need to go over any of this. This is just what we had right up here. So we had the preview here, and we had the actual action, but we've seen that between the kind of plan and the actual event, we've seen a very moved father who took pity on his son, comes running and gives him a hug, is very happy to see him, but the son still has his plan, and he says, well, Father, I've sinned. And then dixit autem pater, so again, our subject is changing. This is now our subject, the father, and autem. We can see this is really a pretty bland connector. It's still post-positive, as it would be in classical Latin, but it doesn't mean however or moreover. It's really just saying, and then, next, autem. We've seen so many of these. So the father said to his servants, Quito, quickly, proferte stolam. So come bring out a, what do we call a stolam here? A cloak or a robe. Let's think. All right, so this is going to be our direct object, and primam is just saying here at first. It's not his first cloak. It's just saying kind of where we would use an adverb first. So bring out, and then what is this? Well, this is a second person plural, because he's talking to his plural slaves. Second plural imperative. And coming all from pro, for, out, sort of, and then fero, bring. So proffer, offer him, bring out. First his cloak, and clothe him. So that's what you do after you bring out the cloak, obviously. And give an annulum, a ring. So again, another imperative here. And then accusative direct object. Give a ring onto his hand. So maybe we might say put a ring on his hand. And calciamenta, so these are sandals, onto his feet. So we got a ring for the finger and sandals for the feet. Et aducete, and lead out a vitulum. So we get to learn what that is, a calf, a kind of fatted calf, having been fattened. So really what this is a fattened calf. And Lafleur helps us out. This verb is ultimately coming from saginare, to feed, to fatten. So we get the fourth principal part, fattened. So here we have it working with vitulum. This is going to be an accusative, singular, masculine, working with our veal right there, right? So bring it out, aduke it, and okid it, hey, kill it. So kind of sad day for the calf, but good day for the prodigal son who has returned. Et manduquemus. So, and literally, and let us chew. which is a little bit funny to say. So where is this coming from? So you go to the back of the Fleur. Let me bring this up. Manduco. So we get Manduco, which, Manduco. It's a nice first conjugation verb. So the infinitive, the second principal part, would be manducare. So again, he fears a giant liar, our kind of mnemonic to remember what happens when we go into the present subjunctive. So we have then manducamus, telling us that this is our present active subjunctive. And when we have these in the first person plural, outside of any kind of case where we need a subjunctive, it's not part of a ut clause or whatever, these tend to be what we call hortatory subjunctives. All of this coming from the verb hortor, as a deponent verb, hortari, which means to encourage, to kind of suggest. So this is, a suggestion, let us. And this is a kind of alternative to a imperative command. This is including the people, so including the speaker. So let us chew, and let us rejoice. And we get the sense here, because this is actually coming from a deponent verb as well, we've got a passive first person plural ending there. So epule mur, let us eat, let us chew, and let us rejoice, let us feast, because this son, so here this is a short hic, modifying filius manus, this son of mine, we might say, had been dead. So we could have mortuus est, which would mean so mortuus erat is had died, because this verb is deponent. So if we had mortuus est, just as we've had elsewhere, that would mean has died. But we want to take this into the pluperfect, passive in form, but still active in meaning. So what we've got here is had died. All right, from good. And now, and has, so had died, and then has revivified, we might say, has come back to life. This is all getting very messy, I'm sorry. Revivified. This was a long passage. I know we're like 18 minutes in now, so we just got to finish on, power through. We'll get to what everything is in class and later. Peri erat et inventus est. So again, pereo, we had seen that earlier, I am dying. This is the pluperfect form, because we get perere in there, and then we get perii, or periiwi. So perierat is he had died. So another way of saying that, and has been found. So died is one way of doing pereo, but we can also say to be lost, or had been lost. So that's really the meaning here, more than actual death. But of course, because we had pereo earlier, there's resonance there of death, even though we have the more explicit death here at mortuus erat. And let us chew and let us celebrate, because this son of mine had died and has come back to life. He had been lost and has been found. And they began, that's everyone, to celebrate. And we can celebrate now, because we got this done under 20 minutes. We'll continue on with the stunning conclusion of the parable, because we remember that this is all the younger brother who's gone away. The older brother has been responsible and still on the farm the entire time. He's going to have something to say about this, I can guarantee you. See you then.